Hi, this is Katrina. Welcome to my studio and my channel. Today we're going to do a quick little swatch out and a review of a budget brand of watercolour that we get in a lot of discount shops in Australia. The brand is Mont Marte. Now, they have a few different grades of watercolour available, and this was the only one I could actually get locally. So I thought I would actually swatch them out, have a look at what's in them. What I did find interesting, unlike a lot of brands, they actually did provide pigment information on which pigments are in the paints themselves. So I think that this is actually valuable and useful information. And it allows me to make some judgments about potential problems with this set from the outset. But like a lot of introductory watercolour sets, there is one straight up problem, and that is they always include a black and a white. And these are not colours that I think should necessarily be included in a basic introductory 12 colour set. But we'll go over what colours are included and what actually pigments are in them and how they respond. So let's get swatching. The first colour that is out is a Chinese white, which is made up of pigments PW5 and PW6. Now, I had to look up PW5. PW5 is a considered a mixing white and is a very cheap pigment. It's less opaque than titanium white, which is the PW6. So this would be a choice that they've made just to keep prices low. And just for information, I picked up this set of 12 paints for $5 Australian, which is very cheap for watercolour paints. Second colour is, they call it lemon yellow, which is pigment PY3. It's a mono azo yellow. Now PY3 is the colour that a lot of companies use for lemon yellow. I haven't had problems with lemon yellow fading yet in any of my light fastness tests, but it's apparently a pigment that does have some variability. It's not that it consistently fades, but it can be very batch subjective apparently. Now, the other issue with this set from the outset is that all of the pigments that they have chosen, all of the paints in this set, are either semi-opaque or opaque. So if people are going to use these more like you might a gouache, they're probably not really going to mind, and it's probably made along those lines because the sort of people who are going to buy this set have no experience with traditional watercolours. So the third colour is a yellow ochre. Pigment code is PY42, which is a traditional pigment for yellow ochre. It's a semi-opaque. This is the synthetic version of yellow ochre. It's a light fast pigment, it's common, it is available in most beginner sets. I like it as a good landscape yellow. Now the next colour is vermilion. Now I had to look this one up. Vermilion is made out of a PR4, which is a beta naphthol. Now it's a synthetic organic pigment and is basically, it's considered not light fast. It's not used in very many professional watercolour paint brands at all. So this is not a pigment that you would use if you were ever going to hang paints on the wall. again a semi-opaque colour. One is Crimson. This is a PR57:1. This is again a synthetic organic pigment, lithyl rubine or rubine. Again a semi-opaque, and again not light fast, not commonly used in professional watercolour sets. Another pigment that you would not use if you were going to be hanging works on a wall. The next one is the Violet. This is a PV3, an M-methyl violet. Quite a pretty colour, again semi-opaque. This one is considered again not light fast, and has comments that it's actually used as a fungicide. It's considered toxic to cells, and is used as a disinfectant and anti-fungicide in certain settings. Right, the next one, I'm just going to move these a little bit. So I'm not sure that this is a set that could be considered non-toxic, so probably not a children's safe set either. Okay, the next one is Prussian Blue, a PB27, which is the Prussian Blue pigment. Now, Prussian Blue pigment is considered fugitive really, and has proved fugitive in my light fastness tests. I haven't tested this particular pigment obviously, but I had extremely noticeable fading on my Prussian Blue within a couple of weeks of my light fastness testing here in Australia. So I would expect that this version of the pigment will be non-light fast as well. And again, a semi-opaque pigment. Now the next one is Viridian. Now what's interesting, they have classified this again as semi-opaque, and most of the time PG7, it is made of PG7, which is the phthalo green. Most of the phthalo greens I have in other sets are considered transparent, and I'm just having a look at this and probably consider it transparent too, certainly in comparison to some of the others. It does have a high tinting strength. Look, this is a fairly straightforward phthalo green. Then the next one is a sap green. So this is the first of their mixed pigment paints in this set. That is actually something I will say good about the set, that your basic red, yellow, blue are single pigment paints as opposed to combinations. So the colour of this sap green is what I would expect a sap green to be, possibly a little brighter. It's made with a PY1 and a PG7, so that's your Viridian. And your PY1 is a yellow that's no longer used generally. It's a synthetic organic pigment and it does fade. So again, you would not consider that this would have that light fastness durability to it. The next one is Burnt Sienna. And this is another combination pigment. Now which is interesting to me. The Burnt Sienna here is a PR101 and a PY42. And it's a good solid earth red, although it probably didn't need to be a mixed pigment. PR101 is your synthetic iron oxide, and your PY42 is as a yellow iron oxide. It's a synthetic as well. So these should be light fast. And then the last two are Burnt Umber, and again this is very mixed. Burnt Umber in this set is a PR101, PY42, so same as the Burnt Sienna, with the addition of PBK11, and which is usually a granulating black. So we could see some granulation in this, possibly. And then the last colour is PBK7, which is a lamp black, and this is considered, it's the carbon from soot, it's carbon black. I think that this is the cheapest black pigment that they can make. And again, this is considered an opaque colour. And I would argue that it's a colour that's unnecessary in a beginner's set of paint. Having a little look at all of these, and yes, they are all definitely a little on the opaque side. In all cases I can actually see, actually apart from the Viridian, and even the Prussian blue is not bad. But yes, all other paints in this set are most definitely semi-opaque. I can see quite a bit of drying shift with the colours as they've dried. Certainly that vermilion and the crimson have softened off a lot as they dry. It does look like there is a little bit of granulation in that Burnt Umber that would be caused by the PBK11. But again, Burnt Umber is usually made by a PBR7, so it's an interesting choice to go with such a mixed bag. I guess $5 paints, what can you expect? Colours that look, if we have a look at how, so there's my palette, and you can see the colours all look quite intense on the palette, and I guess that's the point. They're to make people feel quite excited as they use them initially, and then you'll probably find that there's a degree of disappointment as particularly like this crimson and the vermilion dry off to a softer colour. Let's just see, I'll just quickly do a glazing stripe and just see how they hold up to that kind of a process. So when I do my swatches, I usually try and do a dark to a light gradation of colour, so I get an idea of the value range that I can get out of. Oh dear, this just does not dilute very well at all. Okay, probably too much water in it. Again, the PY3, see. You can see how much that fresh crimson colour changes from the fresh glazing stripe, and how much more subdued it is when it dries compared to the drier section. I will say this Prussian blue is a very pretty colour, but again, not light fast. You can get a bit of intensity out of it. It's got a beautiful, quite a decent value range for a very cheap set. Oh. And the burnt sienna. Okay, and I can get a bit of decent value range out of that one as well. Burnt umber. It's interesting, on the palette I could see a little bit of the separation of those black pigments on the palette. You do get what you pay for. $5, they're probably worth $5. I would probably suggest that rather than buying the set of so-called watercolors, given that they're all semi-opaque and they have quite a bit of drying shift anyway, I would probably suggest that you'd be better off buying the gouache rather than the watercolor. Although I haven't tried their gouache, it may be very chalky, I don't know. I just feel that these are possibly designed for people who don't actually know how to use watercolor, and my concern would be that if people started using a set like this, because of the opacity and some of the light fastness and the drying shift issues, people may be put off and thinking that when they run into problems it's them not knowing what they're doing, as opposed to the materials letting them down. If you just want something to do single layer, little, swirls of paint in a daily journal and all you're doing is mark making, this could be a very budget conscious way of going about this. But if you want to make art that hangs on a wall, even for a short time, I probably could not recommend a set like this. I would probably at a bare minimum start to look at some of the student ranges at least. I am glad that they provided the pigment information. That is very valuable, and that helps me know where I'm at with light fastness, and I'm not just relying on the way they categorize light fastness, because I noticed that some of their categorize, like they've considered a PR4 as a 3+ light fast, and it's not a light fast pigment. So, and again with the Prussian blue, I don't think that this will be a light fast pigment. But then having said that, a lot of professional companies will classify Prussian blue as a light fast when it's frequently not. So I hope this gives you a little bit of an insight into what you get for your limited money with a range like this. I am going to try and source their so-called professional set and see how that compares. I know that they do cost a little bit more, but next time I'm in Brisbane or somewhere where I have access to art shops that may supply them as an option, I might see about picking up a set and seeing how they compare. What I am looking for are sets that people can really start, like they've gone from just mark making and they would actually like to learn how to use watercolors correctly. And I don't think that a set like this will set people up for that journey. So I hope you found this somewhat helpful. Comments or questions, please don't hesitate to add them to the comments section. Like or follow if this has been helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye.